Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Francis Vogel Story Strategist podcast. Today, I have another example of what bloody brilliant looks like in terms of the kinds of organisations that I think are really doing pioneering work in the world. It's an absolute pleasure to have Vicky from Bethnal&Bec here with me today. Oh, we've got less than an hour to cover off all of the things. Bethnal&Bec is an absolutely amazing looking, because I haven't had the luxury of being able to go there yet. Place that's less than an hour up the road from me in Hertfordshire. It is glamping on another level. Vicky and her partner Chris have got an amazing story which they've capitalized on, I think, brilliantly. If you go to their website, you can read all about it, and it's just wonderful to have you on, Vicky. I want to talk about how it came to be, what you've been through, if you're comfortable talking about it personally, your sustainability approach, your hopes for the future, and as much else as you're willing to share about the Bethnal&Bec business. So thank you for being here. How are you today?
Thank you for inviting me on your podcast. It's actually quite funny when you're a small business and you're, beavering away doing what you do, and people actually want to talk to you and are interested in what you do. So thank you for that. How am I today? I'm good today because I am away from home in the business. I take myself off quite regularly for a couple of nights away, me and the dog. And I'm up in Cambridge at the moment working from a lovely place which has got lots of co-working spaces. And it just allows me time to ground myself, concentrate mainly. My medical situations of breast cancer and induced menopause have really thrown a spanner in the works in terms of how I now work, and I've had to relearn that. And one of the things is I have no concentration. So any distraction from the doorbell to somebody talking to me just throws me off kilter, and then it takes me a long time to get my creative juices flowing again. So last year I spent some time thinking about how I need to rectify this instead of just struggling along. So took some time out, and this works really well for Chris and I. Yeah, so I think it's important as well that we don't just constantly judge ourselves on what we did when we were 20 or 30. I'm 48, and I'm a very different person to who I was in my 20s, and my desire to work is different. My ability to work is different. Chris and I do everything in our business, so I am the person behind the writing and the creation, the creativity, from websites to interior design to PR. And that just takes a lot more focus, apparently, nowadays. I can't just knock something out in 5 minutes like I used to be able to.
And was what you did before Bethnal&Bec something that lent itself to what is obviously a skill in terms of the promotional side of the business that you are in charge of?
So, yeah, I started life as a graphic designer. That was what I trained to do. And then I headed off to investment banking world in the city, where I started in the good old days of PowerPoint presentations, doing that. But that was quite a refined skill set in the city back then. I did PowerPoint presentations weren't my thing, so I sort of found myself a role saving the bank's money by creating in-house design teams, which weren't a thing then. And so then we would bring everything in-house, and I then became the brand and print manager buyer. So I did that until I was 28, and loved it. But what I didn't love was the patriarchy that was, and I'm sure still exists in the city, but we're talking 20 years ago. So, I with people, if I was holding a meeting, and I held a big role in the business. I ran a team, I ran £1 million budgets, and yet I'd walk into an office and I would invariably be the only woman in it, and somebody would ask me to make a cup of tea, which at the time it was just part of the job. It was like, okay, I'm a woman in the city and that's what's expected. But it grated on me, and it grated on me to the point where I just couldn't see where and how I could have a career and a future and a family working in investment banking. I worked with a couple of women that unfortunately turned themselves into men to fit that mold, and I knew I didn't want to be that. So I learned a huge skill set from that job, and I decided I was living in Tooting in southwest London, and had been since I was 21. Um, Tooting and Balham at that point were very, I use the quote and unquote up and coming areas of London, and they certainly what aren't what they are like today. But there were many women like me that lived there. It was affordable then. I bought my first flat at 21, and I but in order to go out anywhere, you had to get on the tube. You had to go into central London. There wasn't the culture that there is there now of bars, restaurants, and that kind of thing. And that sort of annoyed me. And I decided to find a derelict shop in Balham and create a wellness space in it. And that's what I did. Took a big bank loan out, really completely believed that what I was doing was right, and it was for the most part. So I opened a wellness space, and that sort of morphed into things over the years. I ran that for 12 and a half years. Um, and through that time, I went through 2 divorces, and I had my son, who is now just coming up to 14. And Chris and I met online 10 years ago. So Milo, my son, was 3 when I met Chris, and I was a single mum. So I was also running a business, paying extortionate amounts for private childcare. I had no support from my family and no support from Milo's father. So I was literally taking Milo into work with me, breastfeeding in meetings and all of that, which to be honest, I always remember thinking, Christ, I wouldn't have been able to do this in the city. What would I have done if I'd have found myself in this similar situation and I'd had to have gone back to work, which is the case when you take maternity leave. So that was, I guess, a plus and a minus. Met Chris. He had 3 children and was in Hertfordshire. So decided as well that my time in London was probably coming to an end. I'd lived there very happily for 21 years, but was also aware of the schooling needs of Milo. I couldn't afford private education. I wasn't keen on the local schools within the catchment area for me. Milo is mixed race, and the area that we were living in wasn't. I mean, Balham is lovely, but Balham is lovely when I think you can afford private school. And do you know what I mean? It was just a bit like, okay, where are we at? So decided to move out to Hertfordshire, and also decided as well that that would be the right time to sell my business. Didn't fancy the 2.5 hour commute every day, which obviously I used to walk to work. So that's what I did. I mean, the selling of the business took a while. So the 2.5 hours commuting lasted nearly 2 years, but sold it, and had also started Bethnal&Bec. And that was an idea of mine, again, taking all my experience of what I'd learned so far, and wanting to just do something new. I I believe that I have ADHD tendencies, and one of those, again, sort of doing a lot of work on myself in the last year, is that I just get bored of things. I was never going to be, God, if I'd have been born in the 50s and I'd had to have stayed at home, done housework all day, I think I would have gone stir crazy. But I like projects. I like to do something and then to, leave on a good note. So Bethnal&Bec was a creation of Chris and I dating and not wanting to go to hotels and all the time, but liking the idea of self-catering, but finding that it was quite self-catering is quite old-fashioned and stuffy and lots of pine, and actually staying in places that are not as nice as our own home. So why on earth are we paying to stay here? And the market has changed a lot in the 7 years we've been going, but back then, 10 years ago, there wasn't really that mid ground between a hotel and a really luxury self-catering place. So that's what I kind of saw a little part of I wanted to create. And that's what we did. So we bought the house specifically to do Bethnal&Bec. It had outbuildings that needed converting. I think I've probably lived quite a lot of my life where I've been, I think, sometimes being slightly ignorant of the reality of doing something can be a good thing. Chris, you see, is the polar opposite to me. Chris has to research everything to within an inch of its life, and will put up a lot of barriers, not in a bad way, but he really approaches things very differently, which has been really interesting for us running a business together. So I went into this in my sort of ignorance of it will be, you're in hospitality and won't that be lovely? Which it can be, but just like running a shop in Southwest London was, it had its highs, but it also had its real lows. And, you know, people can be quite mean. And also the climate that we're in now, the cost of living crisis, Brexit, all of that stuff has had a big effect on hospitality. But it gives me my creative outlet. And again, coming back to where I sort of started with this, relearning who I am and being 48 and going through the experience of cancer. And I didn't have a moment of, oh, life's for living. More going through that experience, um, being really affected by it, of which, again, people don't tend to talk about so much. It's all about being brave and being a warrior and a survivor. And I didn't feel any of those things. I just felt really fucking angry that that it had happened to me and our family. Um, and also, I had to put a lot of work in to get myself back, because the NHS is amazing at keeping you alive. It's not great at then putting you back together after it's chucked a ton of chemotherapy at you and gone, right, there you go. We've saved you, but now you've got to go off and sort of function in this new body and this new, so I've spent the last years putting myself back together, and a lot of that has also been trying to understand what I want out of the next 48 years of my life. So maybe making it something more positive like that. I see it as a kind of a moment where I've been able to reflect. Um, and creativity is really important to me. And actually, that's why I left. That's what I started out in life doing. And probably, as you've heard me say, where I've felt that creativity starts to stop for me is when I've then left a job. So it allows me that, and really proud of our business. Uh, you know, learning to work with your husband is quite a challenge. I think we're sort of better at it now than we were a few years ago. But you know, we've also been through, we got married in June and I got diagnosed in November. We didn't have much of a crack at married life before that came along. And it's dominated our life. And our business was only a year old when that happened as well. So Bethnal&Bec has, I guess, probably in the last 2 years has really started to flourish. Um, and it's been really rewarding seeing that. And then the philanthropy side of it for us is heartfelt, you know. We being in the system and seeing how incredibly hard people in the NHS work and and the system that it is that these people go in and like 12 hours a day, I don't know, you're an oncologist and you're delivering that kind of news for 8, 10 hours a day, and then you've got to go home and be maybe a father or a partner. Like it's so just blew my mind actually. So we wanted to give back in that respect. We genuinely wanted to give back. So we offer discounts to basically, well, we call it the Blue Light Club because there is a card out there that if you're a member of the Blue Light Service, but it goes beyond that. So you know, ambulance, social care, we offer it to care workers and social services and teachers, and we took COVID in as well because I finished my treatment just before COVID started, which meant we had to lock down as a family for 12 months because I was vulnerable. And we have 4 children, and you know, seeing the work that teachers had to go in still, didn't they? And yeah, it just, so we do that. And we also gift nights away to those with cancer, a cancer diagnosis. We do 5 a year. When I was going through treatment, um, it was a real treat for us to be able to go away for a night. Also, cancer poverty is something that exists and people don't talk about, but you can't work really when you're going through treatment. So you suddenly go to having no income, or being you know, and you can't afford these things. So we work with a charity that looked after us called Something to Look Forward to. We're now the patrons of them, and they work with any small businesses in the UK that can gift anything to people diagnosed with cancer. That could be, you know, a day out to the zoo so you can take your kids, a meal out, a night away. You know, your life is dominated by illness, both you and your children, and it's nice just to step out of that, but you might not necessarily be able to afford it. So we do a lot of work around that. Every year I fundraise for them. um, so that's how it's all knits together really. So it's all genuine, and authentic, which is a big word for me because I feel we live in a world of not so much authenticity now as well with social media. And social media is really powerful for our business. It's really important to our business. It's where 60% of our bookings come from. But we also like to try to be authentic with it. So when we work with content creators, and I only let them, basically they stay and they create content, and I only let them post it if they genuinely believe in our product. I don't allow them to post when they're with us because I don't want them just to post it because they have to. I want it to be genuine. It's really important. It's one of my key things. Um, and you have that control, don't you, when you run your own business? So yeah, there we go. That's us. Me. That's my life.
Well, you've spoken to a number of things that are really in the, you know, in the granular level of detail that I'm so grateful to you for having kind of mentioned. There's quite a few of them, but let's start with what it feels like. So my business is about supporting founders and leaders of purposeful businesses across 4 things using stories: marketing and sales, employee well-being, customer loyalty, and community care. And you've just spoken to sort of basically all of those things as being important strategies to keep a business going, as well as they are lovely for people. But, you know, just from a cold light of day, you know, to be plugged in on those 4 levels. And I think you've also spoken to how it feels for many people who become a bit burnt out or disillusioned, or, you know, those of us in the world of, you know, entrepreneurs do like a new shiny thing, and whether we're on a spectrum or not, who knows, because in 10 years time, I dare say what normal is as it's seen now probably going to be in the minority. And I think what's coming out the wash is that so many of us are different to the next person. And there's certainly something about liking a new shiny thing, which therefore creates a bit of a contradiction in terms for people who are creative, have these amazing ideas. And, you know, the work that you're doing for not only the NHS, but also in sustainability, because if you go to Vicky's website, you'll see that when she talks about being authentic, you know, the level to which they are committed to sustainability in their what seems to be private lives as well as a business is really quite evident. And sorry, I can't quite remember, speaking of getting distracted, what it was that where I was going with that. But as a founder of a business, you know, you do have this kind of creative capacity to think outside the box in terms of what can the citizens do to make this world a better place, where the system, bless its heart, is on its knees. So someone's got to do something. And there are charities, and that's wonderful. And then there's people within the business community like yourself who are killing so many birds with one stone. You're making something that's creative for you, that you enjoy, as somebody that does like a new shiny thing, does like to be creative, has this amazing squiggly career in the city and in design. I totally, you know, you and I are peas in a pod in that regard. And when you were talking about being asked to make a cup of tea, I remember 20 years ago when I worked in art insurance as the little marketing girl, that I kind of wasn't really taken seriously. Or rather, it was put to me that I wouldn't be taken seriously. And as an intelligent woman, I wasn't therefore in the right place. If I was, and luckily everything's come out in the wash. And, you know, being committed to communicate ethical communication and corporate social responsibility has stood me in good stead in the last 20 years. And here I am now. But at the time, nothing makes sense, especially as a woman 20 years ago. So you've got all these skills. You're now doing something that you enjoy. But it makes sense for society as well, because the system can't do it without people like you. And then what you're doing for Hertfordshire, you know, the amount to which you cheerlead Hertfordshire I love it. And, you know, the local business that you bring in, you know, your commitment to, community, to business development, and to customer loyalty is evident. What I'd like you to talk about actually is employees and who you have, you know, because what one doesn't see looking at the website is who else is present apart from Chris and Vicky. Vicky and Chris and their children. So what's the behind the scenes?
Behind the scenes. Well, for the most part of the business, it has been Vicky and Chris. However, I definitely want to do a huge shout out to a wonderful woman that we work with, who is our virtual assistant, and that all came about again through cancer. Our VA stayed with us, and afterwards wrote to us and said, you know, loved my stay. I've just started a new business. I'm a virtual assistant, which I had absolutely zero idea what that was. if you ever need anything in the future, if you need any help or any support, I'd love to work with you. So I was like, okay, yeah, that's nice. Thanks very much. I think that was May, Marlon stayed. And then we got married, and then I got ill. And I remember saying to Chris, okay, so, what the hell are we going to do now? Because we literally were doing everything at that point. And that clearly couldn't be sustained. So we got in touch with Marlon, and said, okay, this is what's happened. What can you help out with? So she took on sort of guest communication stuff. And we did that for a year, and then we've never looked back. She's a massively brilliant part of our business, but also what I love about it, um, I decided that when I sold my business in London, I was not going to have any more staff that I had to employ. At one point, I had 20 on the books, and the cost and the legislation around employment is just horrific. And I would say that was probably one of the worst parts of my job, not the actual people themselves, because I love them and love working with people, but the red tape around it and the cost involved. And so both Chris and I said that. And so Bethnal&Bec was originally set up to be something that I did on my own, and he carried on doing his job, which was in London as well. And we had young children at that point, so they were all under, I want to say 12, but it could be younger. And we'd also had an au pair, but we really struggled to find au pairs that wanted to stay in Hertfordshire. I believe why, coming to a village without a shop, we could find them, but they couldn't drive. So the childcare issue became a huge problem. So we were like, okay, let's just poodle along. I'll run Bethnal&Bec, and we've sold, the business in London, and that was that. And then Chris actually ended up leaving his job, and then I got ill, and then Marlon came in, and we did that for a year. But actually, it was really successful, and we were getting a lot of really good feedback. And so we thought, okay, actually, let's do this properly. Let's sort of stop looking at it as a bit of a, oh, I'll do that over there, and that's kind of when we went for it. So we then went through a phase of trying to get cleaning companies in, and these big, it just didn't work. And I would say that that's the biggest challenge for us in our business. We have now what we call our housekeeping team, and they're all self-employed. We've gone through various forms of what that looks like, and that has been difficult, and it's definitely our pain point in our business. I'm sitting here working away from home. It's a turnover today. Chris is at home, but he could also be doing other stuff. We always have to work on the basis of, oh my God, the cleaner's not come in. We need to do a turnover. And that makes this particular job quite stressful.
Mm.
So what we did last year was try to think be a bit clever. And so I went out to the wider community, and I looked at, our job is quite nice and I hate to say it because I hate putting us in boxes, but sadly it is the case, mums at home with their children working within school hours. You have to be done by 3 with us. So, it fits. So we've got 4 individual ladies employed, and they all have 1 shift a week. And then they help and they cover for sickness and all of that. So I've got a pool of 4 people, and that's worked really well. They bring their children to work with them in the holidays. They bring their children in if they're ill from school, the kind of illness where we know they're not ill, they're kids and they can sit in the back of the car with an iPad if I need to go to work type scenario. Obviously, when they are ill, then we step in. But yeah, that's kind of how we worked it out. And that gives local employment, it gives flexibility, it's within school hours, we give training, we it's worked really well. Yeah, that's been a big turning point for us. And then I'm passionate about small businesses. We are a small business, and I'm really passionate about sharing small businesses and their successes, sending our guests to them. At the end of the day, we have 20 people a week that come and visit our little village in Hertfordshire. It's not the number one destination in the UK, believe it or not. If I had £1 for every time someone said to me, well, who wants to go on holiday in Hertfordshire? Yeah, but I don't want to go on holiday in the Cotswolds per se, because I don't want to pay the premium for that. And I don't want to go to touristy places full of tourists everywhere. There's nothing authentic about it. Actually, Hertfordshire is beautiful. Do you know what? Before I moved to Hertfordshire, I'd never been. But we've got cute villages. Our village has thatched cottages. We've got really decent pubs. We've got beautiful homes. Down the road from us is Nebworth House, Hatfield House. We've got culture and history. You don't need to travel 3 hours down the M3 or M4. Neither do you have to always go to Norfolk or Suffolk. So that's been a big, and that's why I champion Hertfordshire so much, because people actually come to us because of our brand, and then they all go out and go, oh, actually, that's really cool that you've got this in Hart. I mean, the amount of guests that say to us, I had no idea. Hitchin, it's brilliant. It's 20 minutes up the road from us. It's like Little London, but without the prices. It's independence. And so then why not, again, instead of, let's say, for example, I'm here in Cambridge. I want to see authentic Cambridge, not student Cambridge, not tourist Cambridge. But where I'm staying, they've provided me anything that's authentic Cambridge. Where can I go? How do I have to work it all out myself? Well, I've taken that away from people. A lot of our business is based on our own experiences. Chris designs the properties. I mean, I design the interiors, but he designs the functionality, and he will design them in a way of things that annoy him, such as, when you get in our showers, you turn the shower on before you get in the shower, so you don't get a wet arm. Do you know what, like that little, like that detail? Just things that they're just thought about. So yeah, when you come and stay with us, I've taken all the guesswork out of where should I go authentically in Hertfordshire, or even in fact, what the hell is there to do in Hertfordshire? Well, there's all of this stuff. And by the way, you're supporting a small business when you go and you do it.
But I think also, if I may just come in at this point, the first line of your website, as far as I remember, is such a great example of good positioning, as we would say in the marketing world. It's very, very clear when you go to the website whether or not this business is for you. And I think I can't obviously quote it verbatim because, I haven't studied it to that degree, but it's something around parents who want a bit of time away from the children. Brilliant. Like, I know that I will be coming to you because I am a parent with 2 little children. And just so that you know, my youngest son has got multiple severe life-threatening allergies, which meant we decided not to travel. And therefore, I have not taken a flight, apart from going to an entrepreneur get-together in the Alps for people dedicated to doing good in the world, which I flew to. I haven't taken flights for 6 years. I did not make that decision based on a sort of selfless, environmentally aware place. But it turns out that the side effect of the fact that, Razzie, who's an absolute rock star, was born in the way that he was with what he has, and then COVID, it means we haven't traveled. So what I did do was fall completely in love with the UK glamping scene. And also I can't be bothered to take my family further than an hour or two out of London because it's a nightmare with children.
Right.
So I found myself, and this very much helped inform Francis Vogel's story strategist. I found myself in the position of being absolutely obsessed with all kind of glamping and camping, luxury cabins and sort of independent pubs with rooms within an hour of London. You know, and I've built this business in order that because I only want to work with the kind of places I've become obsessed with. Because to your point, you know, being a creative person who wants to kind of create the life for themselves in their 40s that makes sense is the selfish act that I have, you know, that has been giving birth to this business. But just sorry, back to the point there, it's very clear to me that your place is for me for that reason. And then, you know, that we've got this thing, and I run a community as well called Better, Bolder, Braver, and we talk about only needing to have 100 true fans. You know, the better known phrase is 1,000 true fans, but really, how many people do you need? 20 a week, as you say, who are going to resonate with, firstly, the parents who need space, secondly, the sustainability values, thirdly, the kind of showing up as a citizen stuff, fourthly, the service that you provide in terms of luxury and guidance. And then that drives the decision to go. Nothing to do with Hertfordshire, but that's the lovely side effect, as you say, is that then we go, oh, Hertfordshire, it's lovely. By the way, I fell in love with St Albans for a similar reason recently. And it's just wonderful for me how these businesses that are being born, or, you know, the way in which people who own farms, etc., are having to kind of pivot their businesses to diversify their income and keep up with the times, and, you know, commit to things like rewilding because that's the right thing to do, are therefore also contributing to this really needed eco-tourism trend that means that people in this country don't have to go far. You know, they don't have to spend a fortune, they don't have to like just fly everywhere and, you know, with the best will in the world, be really badly affecting carbon footprints all over the place, you know. And we can do that by just supporting businesses like yours. But like you say, you have to go that step, that extra mile, to kind of make it easy for somebody to understand, make the whole journey for them, the UX of it all, you know, enjoyable. And that's why I think your business is kind of cutting above, and a really good example, and why I wanted to have you on the podcast, because I think so many people can follow your lead. What you're saying about not having people on your books is also music to my ears. I work happily with people who have big teams, you know, I'm quite happy to do that, although I should say only small to medium-sized businesses, because really big businesses are too unwieldy and I can't be bothered with that crap anymore. But not having lots and lots of staff, and being able to kind of intelligently outsource, as it were, whether it's a VA or a, you know, group of mums who can rotate, that's exactly why I'm offering what I'm offering, because I think also businesses of your size cannot afford the level of expertise that they might need on a full-time basis, and they don't need it on a full-time basis. And you might spend a fortune, for example, on a you know, marketing, UX, employee engagement, so HR, learning and development, and sort of philanthropic endeavor, but they're all happening in silo, because, you know, and it's a real dance, isn't it, to be able to get the right people in to all work together to like unite in this story of change that you want to see. And it's a real craft, and that's why looking at your website, I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Like I say, bloody brilliant example.
Thank you. That's really nice to hear, because again, working on your own and working for yourself, you don't get that feedback. Although I certainly don't miss a performance review, but it is also nice to get some, and that's why the hospitality joys do come when we get those genuine reviews, and we do get people saying, you know, I've just had the best time, and that's really worth it. And I also get to be creative. I'm working on a project at the moment which I'm really excited about. We're going to start doing some sort of retreats and some day stuff with us, and yeah, that's the next level, is doing some midweek bits and pieces and working with other amazing women and being inspired, because I need to be motivated by people like you and people
Mm.
around me. I think that's where I struggled a lot actually in the last few years, is really having to dig deep to motivate through illness, then through COVID.
And you don't need to do it on your own. And the strong founders and entrepreneurs are the ones that are able to hold up their hand, as to your point about authenticity,
Mm,
and say, do you know what, I'd really like some accountability, or for
mm,
somebody to be involved. And having been on the boards of charities, one can see how useful it is to have like a board of people who are like your godmothers and godfathers, who are there to support you in whatever way is needed. Because it's all right to say, I like a new shiny thing, I've had cancer, do you know what, I don't want to do it all.
mm, mm.
But to be able to put your hand up and say that, and not fear that everyone's going to think you're a failure, is the reason why I think the way you do things and what you're doing is so brilliant.
Thank you.
Yeah, we've got 5 minutes, Vicky. I want to know what do you have a plan for the next 5 years? You've touched on it. Is your plan to not have a plan because you like to let yourself off the hook?
Yeah, never had a plan. When I had to go to the bank all those years ago and get my loan, and they were like, "Oh, what's your business plan 5 year?" Or I don't know. I used to say, I might not even be alive." The irony.
I love that.
No,
And I talk about niching for now, because I often get people in my community and, the people I work with saying, I can't possibly say who I'm for, because then I'm, effectively what they think is they're nailing their colors to the mast forever. But you're not. It's just for now. Like if you
yeah,
decided to completely pivot, and maybe you decide to
exactly.
market to dog owners only from
You
next year
know,
onwards, you're
yeah.
allowed.
But also, I think that's quite an old-fashioned masculine trait of, I go to school to learn a trade, and I'm going to do that job for the rest of my life. And I'm not sure that's how we should be nowadays. So
Mm-hmm.
the plan is for Bethnal&Bec, we're growing and we're expanding. We're currently badly building a place down in Suffolk, which isn't going to plan, but it's not in Suffolk as in touristy Suffolk. It's of course in a place that nobody's ever heard of. Um, that should have been opening this year, but through various things out of our control, that won't be. But that will be, and that will be our first family retreat. So
Mm.
that's a whole new experience. Yeah, kids, sleeping up to 5 people, a house basically. So we've got that we're doing, and we're also very seriously considering doing another one where we are on our property, but again, mixing it up a bit,
Mm-hmm.
doing something is slightly different. So that's the plan. Had you asked me that a year ago, that wouldn't have been the answer.
That's a plan today.
That, yeah, but that's what I mean. It's like, that I know that we've put our sticks in the ground, as it were, with those things, and we're doing it. But yeah, we've thought about franchising. We talked about. I mean, I would really like to do a lot more. I was a keynote speaker at a conference a few months ago, and I really enjoyed that. I love sharing knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
I get a lot of energy from that. I'd also love to go and help other people in our industry improve their businesses.
I'm
I
seeing a
think
lot
this.
of this. I think this might be something I'll pick up with you another time, because I'd love to
Mm,
know. I'm speaking to people like you, uh, whether it's Home Farm Glamping, who you probably know,
yeah, yeah, I know them.
Alice, or a wonderful lady I spoke to yesterday who runs a writer's retreat, 3 cabins in Sussex. And so, organically, I'm meeting quite a few of these people, but I wonder if there is a sort of formal network for knowledge sharing. And especially given that everybody's kind of on the same page trying to do the same thing, it would make sense. So whether it's you franchising it or not, just the opportunity to say, like, if you're going to build a cabin, make sure you're, and here's the, and like you say, Chris might come along and go, just a thought, put the
Yeah, yeah,
shower thing on the outside,
yeah,
and
yeah.
I love
Is
the
that's just
idiosyncrasies, but it might also be
yeah.
really useful for yeah, for someone
And
else to be thinking about that.
there's a lot of existing businesses in our industry that are kind of going, well, why is nobody booking with me? And I'm like, oh, well,
Right.
actually, you've got a beautiful product, and you have, a beautiful thatched cottage somewhere. They haven't got any bookings, and the two to me just don't make sense. So I would love to have the
Yeah.
opportunity to marry
Yeah.
the two.
Well, I might roll you
Yeah,
in. I might have to roll you in then because or maybe work with you to produce a kind of,
yeah.
free download for people who are really keen to get
Well,
into
yes,
this
passive
world.
income is something I'm working on as well,
Sure, but
exactly
even
for
even
that.
if
Yeah.
it's not, because I'm kind of in the, yeah, how can we have fun,
Mm.
you and I, without necessarily needing to, maybe it is charging for it, but I was thinking more not, and just,
Yes,
sharing knowledge.
starting with that, but yes,
Yeah,
that's on my list of things, passive incomes as well. Who doesn't
yeah,
want to earn money whilst they sleep, hey?
right. Yeah. Who in my version of that is like, um being, we've got a phrase in a community that I'm in, which is being paid to be you, which is really nice. So
I
happy to not
like
be
that.
asleep, but love it when someone pays me for something that I actually bloody love. Like
Yeah,
that's the dream, is like just
yeah,
love what you do like this, and then it
yeah,
turns out that you've designed a life for yourself so you can do this all day long every day, and you never have to work for anyone else again. Yes. So
absolutely. Yeah.
right. On that merry
Thank
note, my
you.
friend,
Lovely to
it's,
talk to
yeah,
you.
absolute pleasure. Won't be the last time, I'm sure. And everyone, do check out Bethnal&Bec, and it's in Hertfordshire, which is great. Vicky's awesome, and I will be there with my husband, and then I will be there with my family when they open their new place in not very well known Suffolk. So
Mm.
thanks, Vicky.
Pleasure. Thank you.